Hey guys, welcome back to Film Feature 43.
You talking to me?
Oh no, I'm not talking to you.
You talking to me?
No, I'm talking to them.
Well, who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me?
Alright, yeah, no, I'm not talking to you. I want to continue doing this. Sorry, bud. Hey guys, welcome back. Today, I'm going to talk about a film that was used as the defense in the assassination attempt of our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. So before I get started, I kind of want to say that I don't really buy into the fact that films and video games can make people more violent, but this was the actual defense that was used by John Hinckley Jr. in the 1980s. So I just want to talk about it and kind of talk about this weird part of film history. This is something I'm trying new, a little bit of film history instead of theories and reviews. So if you like this kind of thing, let me know down below. Is there any other films that you know of that had an impact on history? I would definitely like to watch them and talk about what impact they have. So let me know down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you want some more stuff like this or some more video reviews. And let's get into it. So the film I'm talking about today is Taxi Driver, starring Robert De Niro as Travis Bickle. If you don't know the movie or if you've never seen it, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown. So it starts off with this taxi driver. We find out that he's a Vietnam veteran, has PTSD and these mental issues, and he comes back to New York driving taxi, and he's upset with the state that New York is in. It's decaying, and he's essentially driving in the underbelly of New York. He sees this volunteer for campaign, played by Sybil Shepherd. Her name is Betsy, and he starts stalking her. He sits outside staring at her at the campaign headquarters and is acting really creepy. And he finally goes in and asks her on a date.
And why do you feel that you have to volunteer to me?
Because I think that you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
To which she agrees, which I would feel very unsafe with the guy who's been stalking me the last couple weeks, but she agrees, and they go out on a small date, and he writes home to his parents about his beautiful girl that he's seeing, and he starts keeping a diary. They go on a second date, and he blows it. He takes her to an adult film theater, and she storms off thinking that he's a creep, probably rightfully so, considering the fact that he just stalked her for weeks on end. Travis keeps seeing this prostitute around. It's a little 12-year-old girl, and he is really distraught from the breakup, so he starts buying guns off the black market, and he keeps having these fantasies about going in and saving this 12-year-old girl, played by Jodie Foster. Her name is Iris.
Why do you want me to go back to my parents? I mean, they hate me. Why do you think I split in the first place? There ain't nothing there.
Yeah, but you can't live like this. It's a hell.
So then these fantasies eventually culminate into him trying to kill the presidential hopeful that Sybil Shepherd character Betsy is working for, and he gets seen, and he takes off running and doesn't get caught. A little bit later, he goes into the brothel where Iris is being held and being solicited, and he kills the pimp and two other guys in there. In the process, he's shot. He turns the gun on himself to kill himself, and he's out of bullets. The cops show up, rush him to a hospital, and he ends up living, or at least we think that he lived, and it's not kind of like this fantasy type thing. I've seen theories on that everything that happens after that is all in his mind as he's dying, but from what we see in the movie, he goes on living. Iris is returned to her family. Iris's dad writes Travis thank you notes for saving his little girl, and he's seen as this hero. There's newspaper articles saying that he's a hero, and he goes back to driving taxi, and he gets the girl, aka Betsy. He gets in his taxi, and she's in the back seat, and that's the end of the film. So with all that being said, that leads us to our real-life Travis Bickle, our Travis Bickle stand-in, if you were, John Hinckley Jr. John Hinckley Jr. was born in 1955 to John Hinckley Sr. and Joanne Hinckley, aka Jodie Hinckley. In 1975, he moves out to Los Angeles to become a songwriter, and he fails at that, so he starts going in and out of college, and he fails at that. He's a loner, but while he's away, he starts writing letters to his parents about this girlfriend that he has named Lynn Collins. Come to find out that Lynn doesn't actually exist. It's a made-up person who he makes up so his parents think that he's normal. He begins buying guns, and he's placed on antidepressants, and in 1976, Taxi Driver comes out, and he becomes obsessed with this film. He watches this film 15 times, and it's not as easy as just hitting play on a streaming device or Blu-ray. He had to actually go to the movie theater 15 separate times. He bought the soundtrack to this film and just listened to it on repeat for hours and hours and hours. And he also read the source material that Taxi Driver is based off of, the attempted assassin to George Wallace. He begins wearing army fatigues like Travis Bickle does in the film, and drinking peach brandy like Travis Bickle, and wearing cowboy boots, and keeping a diary. All these things to emulate Travis. Now, I also read somewhere that he cut his hair into a mohawk to kind of emulate him as well. I only saw that at one source. I tried to confirm it, and I couldn't find that anywhere else. But all these other actions were confirmed by multiple sources. He wanted to be Travis, essentially. But his biggest infatuation with this film was the 12-year-old actress, Jodie Foster. He fell in love with Jodie. Jodie Foster, whose real name is Alicia Christian Foster, shared a similar nickname, or the same nickname, to Hinckley's mom. He began stalking her just like Travis did to Betsy in the film. He followed her to Connecticut and went to Yale and even took up a class with her. Unbeknownst to her, he started writing her letters and slipping them under her dorm door and calling her on the phone and just stalking her in general, to the point where she actually got afraid for her safety. After all these failed attempts, he began to fantasize about how can I get Jodie's attention. So what his ideas were was he was going to hijack a plane, or he was going to go find Jodie somewhere secluded kind of and kill himself right in front of her. I don't know how that endears yourself to her, but that was his thoughts. This man clearly had different issues. I believe that later on he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So that is what we're dealing with here. He is just trying to live out the life of the taxi driver. So what he decided to do, his final thought was he's going to do what Travis Bickle tried to do but failed at. He's going to attempt to assassinate a person running for president or a sitting president. So he starts following Jimmy Carter from town to town, state to state, trying to get to the point where he can pull off the assassination. He did it without any weapons to begin with, and he even noted about how easy it was for him to get a few feet away from Jimmy Carter.
I feel so close to you right now.
Eventually, he had the date planned. He's going to Nashville, where Carter's at. He gets on a plane. The plane lands, and he starts acting kind of fidgety in the airport, and they find out, hey, this guy's got guns. They confiscate the guns, fine him, and send him home.
And you have a gun.
You have a gun?
No, I don't have a gun. You have a gun.
Gun! 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 Gun!
So, with this failed venture, he turns back. He decides he's going to commit suicide again, and he doesn't. He gets another bright idea. Carter's gone. Reagan wins the 1980 election, so he's going to kill Reagan instead of killing Carter. A note was found by Hinckley, written to Foster, that he wrote before the assassination, and it read, "Over the past 7 months, I've left dozens of poems, letters, and love messages in the faint hope that you could develop any interest in me. Although we talk on the phone a couple of times, I never had the nerve to simply approach you and introduce myself. The reason I'm going ahead with the attempt now is because I cannot wait any longer to impress you." So, on March 30th, 1981, outside of the Washington, D.C. Hilton Hotel where Reagan was giving a speech, he came out the front door and 6 shots rang out from Hinckley, who was standing in the crowd. I watched a little bit of a documentary on him, and he told himself if Reagan didn't come out of those doors in 10 minutes, he was going to leave and call the whole thing off, and Reagan happened to come out of those doors within the 10-minute time period, and Hinckley opened fire. 4 men were hit, including police officer Thomas Delahanty, Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy, press secretary James Brady, and the president himself, Ronald Reagan. Reagan was hit by a bullet that actually ricocheted off the limousine, came back and landed underneath his armpit, and it went through, hit a rib, cracked it, and landed in his lung. Reagan actually made it to the hospital from the limousine and walked in the hospital unassisted. He even waved to onlookers to kind of quell their fears. He got into the hospital and he ended up collapsing. When his wife Nancy got there, the first thing he said to her was, "Honey, I forgot to duck." And before he went under anesthesia for the operation, he told the doctors, "Hey, I hope you guys are all Republicans." And the doctor responded, "Today, sir, I think we're all Republicans." Who the doctor actually was a Democrat, which is kind of funny. It took an hour and 5 minutes for the operation, and Reagan lost half the volume of blood in his body from internal bleeding.
And democracy that have marked the history of this city. America missed me.
So, Reagan gets out of surgery and actually lives through this ordeal. This happened in 1981. He actually lived until 2004, where he died of pneumonia and complications from Alzheimer's disease. It's actually kind of debated among historians and people close to Reagan that they believe that this incident actually expedited his Alzheimer's. That came on quicker. They think that he probably would have had it later a little bit in life, but as soon as 1994, he really started showing symptoms. Alzheimer's can be brought on by some severe trauma and also being put under anesthesia. So this incident is one time that Reagan experienced trauma. Another incident was a horseback riding accident where he actually fell off the horse, hit his head, and they had to drill into his head to relieve the pressure. So they think that maybe it's a combination of the two. But that is where Reagan's side of the story kind of ends. As far as Hinckley Jr., he was taken to trial, and this was his defense. The movie made me do it, essentially. I'm crazy. And he was found not guilty by reason of insanity. They actually asked Jodie Foster to come and testify, or they subpoenaed her to testify at the trial. I don't know who that would have helped. All she had to do was say, yeah, that's the name of the crazy guy that has been stalking me. But he was essentially let off. He went to a mental facility for years. They actually played taxi driver in the courtroom to kind of show how drawn to it he was. And it was said and reported that he took his eyes off the screen twice, and the one time was during a rough scene with Travis Bickle, and another scene was when Jodie Foster's character hugs the pimp. So it kind of is showing his love for Jodie. One thing that Hinckley wrote about the shooting was it was the greatest love offering in the history of the world for Jodie, and he was very disappointed that she didn't reciprocate his love to him. He was also very upset when Jodie Foster announced that she was a lesbian later in life. So that sucks for him, I guess. He's a free man as of now, 2016. He was found to not be a danger to himself or to anyone else anymore. So he's living under the care of his mother, and he's a free man. So that's my video, guys. A little peek into the history of the movie Taxi Driver. Martin Scorsese directed it, and he said he was never going to direct any films again after hearing that Hinckley was using this as his kind of defense. That obviously didn't happen. Scorsese's still making movies, but it's interesting of what goes through people's minds and how a movie can impact different people. Like I said, I don't blame the movies for violence that is happening, but whenever somebody who does have mental illnesses sees something, maybe they might take it out of context. Who knows? But that's the video. If you learned a little something, let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.
You talking to me?
No, I'm still not talking to you.
Well, I'm the only one here.